All right, now, dig.
Alright, what's up everybody? The Setup Man coming at you today from virtual Kentucky, driving a cup car in test session. I tried to build this setup on a live YouTube stream, and the setup was okay. This is basically the same setup with just a little bit of tweaks, but the video product did not come out very good. The stream died at one point and I had to restart it, and then it got real glitchy at other spots in it, so it just wasn't a good video product. So I'm going to try to do this here in the normal mode, where I just kind of record it on the PC and don't have to worry about how strong the bandwidth is and that kind of stuff. And then I will post it. But this setup, I think I ran a 30.5 or 30.6 on the YouTube stream. I've tweaked it and got just a little bit faster. I'm probably a tenth or tenth and a half faster. I got down to a 30.4, and I am hoping that was pretty quick. That was a 30.502. That was real close to being what my all-time best was. So I will take that. So now you see what the setup can do. Let's talk about how I get around Kentucky here a little bit, and then we'll show the setup. So a couple of marks at Kentucky, okay? When I am coming down the back stretch, there is the Porta-Johns here. The Porta-John is my mark for where I start the turn. Now, I don't necessarily let off the gas this early, but this is where I start turning the car. So I'm going to start turning it at those blue Porta-Johns you can see out there. Now, as I'm turning, I'm trying to get to the bottom here, but I'm still in the gas. And then it's hard to kind of know where you're at, but you get a feel for it. But there is that, I guess you'd call it almost like a V up here, a webbing up there. When I am about there, that is where I am getting off the gas. So you're turning back there at the Porta-Johns, but you're still in the gas till you're up here. I like to get kind of below the suggested line here, and I don't brake, but about that point I lift and I try to get the car to rotate. I'm trying to really get the car to rotate and just roll through here. I think this is the hardest part at Kentucky right here, is just getting the car to roll the center for you. And then right before you get even with those billboards up there. So about here is where I am back on the gas. And you got to do it, I think, one of two ways. Either you stay low all the way around it, like I'm doing here slowly, or if you get on the gas too early or it pushes up, you got to take advantage of the fact that you're up here and you can kind of get a downhill run and you can kind of dive down to the bottom. And as you're coming off that change in elevation, you can really pick up a lot of speed. But either way, you kind of want to be down here by the apron as you come down here back to the start-finish line. And if you've hit it well, on new tires, you should be going about 180 when you hit the start-finish line. Anywhere from about 179 to 181 is what I'm usually looking at when I hit the start-finish line. So kind of how you get there, by running the bottom all the way around or letting it drift to the top and then dive back down. Either way, you need to be hitting between 179 and 181 on fresh tires here. Now, when I get to turn one is a little bit different. It seems like you have to start turn one really early. That you're going to start turning the car way before you're actually in the turn. It seems like way back about here, about that Toyota sign that I just passed. And let me back up so you can see it. Way back, probably about here, is where you're going to want to start turning. Because it seems like you fight to get the car to turn in, fight to get it to the bottom coming into one. But then once you get it turned in, that's where you're starting to turn, but you're driving it really deep into the corner, and then probably about here you lift, and I don't know if you get all the way out of the throttle. You probably get down to 15 or 20% throttle, but I don't think you actually get all the way out of the throttle. Then you get hard back in the gas, and then you're going to just kind of, there is a seam down here that you can see in the concrete. You kind of want to stay just above the seam here and kind of just follow that seam around the corner. And then I let it drift when I exited, and by letting it drift, it seems like you pick up a little more speed than trying to pinch it down at the bottom. And that is basically how I run it. And I ran a 30.46 with this setup. and it seems to be really stable in the long run. Now, sometimes you get into an online lobby and it performs different in test session, and that drives me nuts. But it does happen. If it's a little looser in test session, I just go up on the wedge 3 or 4 clicks, and you'll probably be okay. But now that we've put a lap out here to show what it will do, and I've also kind of talked about the line I use, let's go to the garage and show the setup. And this is a different kind of setup than what I used to do, but it seems to be working pretty well for me. So here is the setup. Nothing real crazy on the bump and rebound settings. This is kind of what I normally run, but I'm running this with a lot of different pieces to the puzzle, and the key to this is all the pieces have to fit together. So there's nothing you can say, this is what you do and it exists by itself. Everything has to fit with everything else. But I ran really high front weight. I normally don't run front weight that high, and then I've got really high wedge. So those two things are going to make the car tighter, okay, by going up on those. So we've set the car up to be tight. I have maxed out the springs all the way around, which I used to not max out that left rear spring, and now I'm starting to do that, and it seems like the car, as all these pieces fit together, is more stable. Air pressures are probably pretty standard for what people run at this size track. I've noticed you pick up a lot of straightaway speed when you bump those air pressures up, and what I typically do is run them between 55 and 60, and I keep the left and the rights proportional to the defaults, and then I can adjust from there. And when I say proportional, I mean if the left side pressures were 40% of what the right sides were, then when I bump the right sides up to 58, I make sure that the left sides are still 40% of whatever the rights are. So that's what I mean by keeping them in proportion. It seems like as you're going up in tire pressure, it seems like it allows me to also be a little more aggressive in the camber. So these are probably a little higher camber settings than most people run, but it doesn't seem like it affects the tire wear. It actually seems like it balances it out when you're running high tire pressures if you go up on the camber. But next up is that sway bar. That's another piece that is different than what I normally run. I have gone way up on the sway bar, and I'm kind of running a sway bar about as stiff as I possibly can. And when I say stiff as I can, that doesn't mean it's maxed out. But when you get the sway bar too stiff, the car will let you know. Because when you go into a corner, it'll give you a terrible vibration or wobble or whatever you want to see, and you'll actually be able to see the car shake on the screen. When you are up that high, that's when you know you pushed the sway bar too far. But I run it about as high as I can run it without getting it to vibrate. And by the way, if that sway bar does vibrate, you can come over and go up on these front bump and rebound settings a couple clicks, and it may not get completely rid of it, but it'll usually get it to where it's much more tolerable. So that's just a little setup tip. But the front sway bar makes it stiffer, and it really, really, really helps the loose off condition when the tires wear. So I've noticed that putting that sway bar up there makes the car much more stable and not get loose on the long runs. So I've done all these things, like the sway bar makes it tighter, the front weight makes it tighter, the wedge makes it tighter, all these things that I've gone up on to make it tighter. Then I balance it out by taking these track bars, and the track bars are maxed out. So I run really, really high track bars, which helps loosen the car up. So all these other things I did that tighten the car up, these offset it and balance it and kind of get the thing back into balance, so to speak. Other than that, the only other thing that's a little odd is the wheel lock. I'm starting to run a lot lower wheel lock. I found out I don't need to run a wheel lock of 8 or 10 or 12. Usually 4 to 6 will work depending on the track. So those are kind of some of my newer setup philosophies. But I think this is maybe just a hair quicker, but I think it's a lot more stable in the long run, and you're probably going to see the setups I come out with from here on that are maybe like updated setups for tracks that I've already done one for are going to look kind of similar to this. So anyway, I think this is a little bit better, will work a little better for you. It's going to be a little more stable, maybe have just a hair more speed in it. But that's all I got. Try it out. Let me know what you think. Hope it works well for you guys. So check it out. Give me some feedback. Hope it runs lots of fast laps and wins lots of races for you. Thank you guys for the support, and have a great day.